No, not violent, not people who would hurt police officers. Those who who got caught up in the riot, if you will.
He's called them political prisoners, sir.
I'm talking about the trespassers. There are some that have been.
You've heard Donald Trump differentiate between those folks? Because I have not.
Too strongly prosecuted. Okay, and we have weak prosecution on most violent crimes in my cities of Philadelphia.
You've heard Donald Trump differentiate between the folks that were there on January 6th on the Capitol, the ones that you're describing as just getting caught up in the riot, and violent rioters?
I've had private conversations with him, so certainly I have.
That was a CNN interview with Boris Sanchez, who I think does a very good job, and MAGA Republican Congressmember Dan Meuser, and Congressmember Meuser also is the co-chair of Donald Trump's efforts in Pennsylvania. Look, when you have people as disingenuous as Dan Meuser make comments like, oh, Donald Trump didn't say this or Donald Trump didn't say that, I'm glad that Boris Sanchez pushed back, because the bottom line is we have the receipts right there. I want to show you more from that interview of Boris Sanchez and Dan Meuser, but you know, here on the MeidasTouch Network, we come with the receipts. So let me show you this first. Here is Donald Trump saying to President Biden, release the hostages, Joe, release the hostages. Play this clip.
What they've done, and they ought to, you know what they ought to do? They ought to release the J6 hostages. They've suffered enough. They ought to release them. I call them hostages. Some people call them prisoners. I call them hostages. Release the J6 hostages, Joe. Release him, Joe. You can do it real easy, Joe. This guy, what he's done to people. And then
next, I want to show you right here. This is the song that Donald Trump created with the January 6th insurrectionists who are currently being detained. And there's only about 15 of them still being detained. That's who Donald Trump's referring to as hostages. And instead of playing the national anthem, they play the J6th choir song, which replaces the lyrics to the national anthem. And at the beginning of Donald Trump's events, they say, rise for the unfairly treated J6 hostages. Then they play a new version, a traitorous version of our national anthem. Let me just show you a clip of that. Play this clip.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the horribly and unfairly treated January 6th hostages.
well, thank you very much. And you see the spirit from the hostages, and that's what they are, as hostages. They've been treated terribly and very unfairly, and you know that, and everybody knows that. And we're going to be working on that soon as the first day we get into office. We're going to save our country. We're going to work with the people to treat those unbelievable patriots, and they were unbelievable patriots and are. You see the spirit just cheering, they're cheering while they're doing that, and they did that in prison, and it's a disgrace in my opinion.
And then at all of Donald Trump's speeches, he says things like, I don't call them prisoners, I call the J6 insurrectionists hostages. Here, play this clip.
Minneapolis, where they took over the police station, they took it over and they burned it down. By the way, what happened to those people? Are those people in jail with the J6 hostages? What happened to those people, come to think of it? They're not in jail with the J6 hostages. I don't call them prisoners, I call them hostages. They're hostages.
And then when asked on an interview with Meet the Press if he would pardon the leader of the Proud Boys, Enrique Tarrio, Donald Trump says that he would certainly look into pardoning him. Here, play this clip.
Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio was sentenced to 22 years in jail. Now that you know what the sentence is, 22 years in jail, will you give him a pardon? Will you give other Proud Boys a pardon?
I don't know him. I never met him. I never heard of him until I started reading this
stuff.
Will
you pardon him?
But I want to tell you, he and other people have been treated horribly.
Will you pardon him?
In Minneapolis, I'd certainly look at it. I'd look at that, and I'd look at all the other people that have suffered, the J6 people.
So I just want to show you the data right there, right? Data matters. I'm going to show you that interview, more of that interview in just a moment. Here is a report by NBC News. Meet some of the violent January 6th rioters that Donald Trump keeps calling hostages. Trump has made his defense of those incarcerated in the Capitol attack case a central part of his 2024 campaign. Many are accused of assaulting police, some others fled. NBC News reviewed the hundreds of cases against the January 6 defendants and found that just 15 people charged in connection with the Capitol attack are currently being held pre-trial at the order of federal judges. That number of pre-trial detainees has decreased in recent months as more and more January 6 defendants have taken plea deals or have been found guilty, and as federal judges have been hesitant to hold new arrestees in pre-trial custody more than 3 years after the attack. Here's a photo of the January 6 rioters who are currently pre-trial detainees. Let's just take a look at some of these individuals so we know who they are. Let's exist not in the Dan Meiselas propaganda world. When Donald Trump calls the people who are being held in prison hostages who sing the new national anthem with him that he puts out instead of our great national anthem. Daniel Ball, charged with assaulting law enforcement and throwing an explosive device. It talks about how he was previously convicted of 2 counts of battery of law enforcement officers. And then it says the FBI says that after breaching the building, Ball went around the Lower West Tunnel where some of the worst violence of the day took place, shoved officers fighting to keep the mob out. Ball then moved back, hunched over, and looked at something in front of his torso before hurling an object, an explosive device, into the Lower West Tunnel. Or John Meiselas, accused of firing a gun during the Capitol attack. Or Tim Boehner, allegedly bragged he effed those cops up, and he assaulted officers with chemical spray. Or Edward Kelly, charged with plotting to murder FBI employees after his release in January 6 cases. So enough of just the lies. It is so despicable that this is the Republican platform that these dangerous, violent thugs who disgraced our country on J6, acting like they're not violent or that Donald Trump doesn't mean what he says he do. People like Dan Meiselas are so utterly disgraceful for going out there and saying things that are so obviously contradicted by just what the facts are. That's why my whole point is I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican or an independent, whether you're a progressive or conservative, or you just don't give a crap about politics at all. What you should give a crap about is not being lied to, is not being treated like a fool by these MAGAs like Dan Meiselas who want to hoist on us the most dystopian world that would make George Orwell's drafting of 1984 not even be able to fathom the degrees to which the American carnage dystopia that the modern day MAGA Republicans want to create for us. Enough. Democracy matters. The truth matters. The facts matter. With that context, I want to show you what Boris Sanchez said in that full interview with Dan Meiselas. Now that you're armed with the facts, you'll see just how disingenuous, what a liar MAGA Republican Meiselas is. Play this clip.
So the idea of trying to pin it on President Trump's words, I think falls way short. So I do think the president would address it for what it was, for what the American people saw, and denounce it. And he's
talked about pardoning those folks that you were talking about being violent and that hurt a lot of Capitol Police officers and other people as well.
Right. Well, no, not violent, not people who would hurt police officers. Those who who got caught up in the riot, if you will.
He's called them political prisoners, sir.
I'm talking about the trespassers. There are some that have been.
You've heard Donald Trump differentiate between those folks? Because I have not.
Too strongly prosecuted. Okay, and we have weak prosecution on most violent crimes in my cities of Philadelphia.
You've heard Donald Trump differentiate between the folks that were there on January 6th on the Capitol, the ones that you're describing as just getting caught up in the riot, and violent rioters?
I've had private conversations with him, so certainly I have, and of course they should. Okay, if somebody's beating a police officer, and some did, okay, they're far cry different from those who basically wandered in to the Capitol, and they were wrong. But they should received no more of a penalty than anybody else who would be.
I'm not sure there were a whole lot of folks
trespassing.
just randomly wandering into the halls of Congress. It certainly didn't look like that from where I was standing.
Boris,
2 blocks
I was there.
away.
I saw it.
Sir, respectfully, I have to disagree with your characterization, but I do appreciate your time,
I'm not
Congressman Dan
minimizing
Meiselas.
anything because it was a bad day.
Well, you're saying that these folks deserve to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. The former president, is talking about pardoning the same people that attacked you and your colleagues.
And you want to know what? Joe Biden dismissed. And
What does this have to do with
Harris-
Joe Biden? Let's talk
Hold on a
about
second.
Donald
I'm
Trump.
going to explain.
Talking
Kamala
about pardoning
Harris.
people.
There you have it, folks. Tell me what you think. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 3 million subscribers together. Thank you for watching.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.